You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 223. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where we talk about what really happens when you take a break from drinking. And it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done. I'm Anna, coach to high achievers who are done waking up with regret and ready to feel in control around alcohol. If you've ever wondered what your life could look like with less wine and more you, you're in the right place. Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcast. If you are one of my regular listeners, welcome. Very lovely to see you again, and maybe you're new to me, maybe you've just found me. So again, a huge welcome to you. I'm Anna Charles and I have created this podcast to talk all things alcohol and drinking less or not at all without having to label yourself sober or any of those things, right? This is all about creating a relationship with alcohol where it basically becomes an irrelevance. It's just not important in your life, and that's whether you decide to continue drinking or not. All right, so today we're talking about, the topic is the off switch. And for those of you who've been in my world for a bit, you will know that this is the name of my book. The Off Switch, and specifically why I called it that. And it's actually interesting. You often hear that the name of the book is the last piece of the puzzle. In fact, when I wrote my novel about 5 years ago or something, A Thin Line, that actually was the very last thing I decided. But with this book on alcohol, it was what I knew I was going to call it right from the get-go, because this is something I hear all the time. Right, I'm talking with people, whether clients to be or maybe just people I meet in the street or in a pub or something, just people. And I certainly read this all the time on the message boards. People talk about I have no off switch. And it's not just the words, but it's the way it's discussed. It's kind of like it's some written in stone fact, right? Like, my name is Anna. I have brown eyes. I am 5'5". And I have no off switch, right? So this is what we're talking about today. Now, before I get into this, if you haven't already listened to the episode 222, the one just before this, I do encourage you to go ahead and do that. I talk with one of my clients, Ishali, and she just gives such a wonderful explanation as to how her life has changed when she has modified, when we just completely changed her relationship with alcohol and what it means in her life. Right, the off switch. So, as I said, somebody says this to me pretty much every week, and it might be the first thing they tell me about themselves, especially if I'm meeting somebody maybe socially and they learn I'm an alcohol coach. This is what they tell me. They'll say things like, my problem is I have no off switch, right? Once I start, I can't stop. And again, it's the way they say it. It's like I'm left-handed or I don't like mushrooms. It's a simple statement of fact. It's how I am. It's how I built, right? And it's kind of like the assumption is, and it's how I always will be. And listen, I always want to ask the same thing. I want to say, so where is it? Where is this switch? Right? Show me where it is on your body and I'll believe you, because I want you to listen to me on this. Because this is the language we use matters. There is no switch. There never was. It's not on you, not on anyone. Nobody walking this earth has an on switch or an off switch for anything, at least for alcohol. It's just a metaphor, right? And somewhere along the line, you picked it up, started repeating it, and then you sort of started to live it as though it's the truth, right? We sort of talk about it. That's just how it is. That's how I am. I have no off switch. But this is why it matters. I'm not just being sort of fixated on the words here for no reason. I want you to think about what happens when you believe you have no off switch when it comes to wine, right? You're going to start drinking, and somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this story running. I can't stop once I start. I can't stop once I start. So do you know what happens? You don't even try to stop, right? Because why would you? You've already told yourself it's not possible. The other thing I see people do is they don't start at all because they say, I'm not sure. Right? So even if you want to have a drink, and there's nothing wrong with having a drink when we're in control, if you're thinking this, you're not going to be feeling in control, so you deny yourself, right? And I want you to offer that it's this belief you have no off switch. Just listen to that language, right? That creates the behavior of maybe not stopping. The behavior is going to confirm the belief. And then round and round it goes until the story feels so true you don't even see it as a story. It's just like I say, it's just like you might have brown eyes, blue eyes. It's just who you are. You don't even imagine questioning it. This is related to what I talked about in episode 220 when I was talking about high quality problems. Vague stories. Our brains love vague stories, but vague stories produce vague results. I have no off switch is one of the vaguest, most unhelpful stories you can tell yourself about drinking. It explains nothing. It solves nothing. It just gives you a reason to stay stuck. And the worst part is you probably didn't even come up with this yourself. Maybe someone said it at a dinner party once, or you heard it said about someone else. You thought, yeah, that's right. That's me. And you've been just sort of adopted it forever and since then. Now, while an off switch is not a thing on your body, the way I frame this is it's like a decision in your mind. And the reason it feels inaccessible, the reason we say I have no off switch, basically I can't stop, I can't decide to have two and just have two, is not because you're not capable of making that decision. It's because you've been telling yourself for so long that you can't, that you have just really stopped trying. I mean, that's really essentially it. That's the shortcut. I have no off switch means I can't do it. Now, when I think about my book is short. It is deliberately short, right? Because I wanted to make a point. I wanted to say that changing your relationship with alcohol is not complicated. It is not this enormous mountain that requires years of therapy and white knuckling and a complete personality overhaul. I didn't want to sort of blind you with science. I think there are enough excellent, by the way, books on the market that talk about the impact of alcohol and so on the body. I didn't want to go in for any of that. I just wanted to say, do these things and you can get out of the struggle, right? I want you to hear me. It is simple, not always easy, but simple. And a short book felt like the right way to talk about this. Because when you understand that your desire is learned, that your brain built a pattern and that pattern can be changed, which is what's going on under the hood, under the bonnet, the off switch stops being a myth and starts being something you can actually create in your mind. So here is the practical application piece, right? You want to consider if you just took all of the practical application pieces I tell you, you'd be through this, right? So I really want you to do this just as an experiment. For the next 24 hours, I want you to stop saying you have no off switch. I want you to stop thinking it. You don't have to think it forever, maybe just for the next 24 hours. Or if you don't find yourself saying it the next 24 hours, let's extend it for the next couple of days. Just notice it. And then when that thought comes, because it will eventually, I want you to replace it with a different thought. I want you to replace it with, I am someone who is learning how to stop. And then I want you to notice what happens. I want you to notice whether the evening feels any different, right? When you're not dragging around like a bag of dirty, smelly rubbish, decide I have no off switch, right? Because that's a story that is stopping, and it's really stopping you from making your dreams a reality, right? Because thoughts become beliefs through repetition. And if you've been repeating a thought like that, a negative thought like that, that's going to keep you stuck, you're going to feel stuck. So that's what I want you to try. Now, if you have been listening to this podcast for 6 months, a year, maybe longer, been going a long time, and you're still in the same place you were when you found it, right? You still have the same struggle. You still can't make a plan, stick to it. You still overdrink when you don't want to. Maybe you binge drink. Maybe you drink every day. I have a message directly for you. I want you to consider, had you taken action 6 months ago, you'd be through it by now. Right? Just like Ishali that you heard last week. Just like her. She was scared. Everyone is scared. Everyone is nervous when they start this process. But Ishali was scared, but she did it anyway. And now she's on the other side of it, and she's talking about the struggle in the past sense. Not only that, you could hear her talking about her eyes are looking towards the future and her future life. That is on the cards for you, right? You get to create the off switch in your mind that creates that reality. The only question is whether you want to keep telling yourself the same old boring old story that has you staying stuck. Now, while I address that to my lovely loyal listeners of 6 months or more, if you've just found me, the same could apply to you too. Maybe you've been struggling with this for years. I've got you. I know what to do. So here are my questions for you today. Now, these aren't rhetorical. These are actual questions I want you to sit with and answer for yourself. Do you want to keep going around saying and believing that you have no off switch? Because you can do that. Nobody is stopping you. But I want to ask, where does it get you? More of the same old evenings, right? More of the same mornings, more of the drinking, just to distract yourself when you're bored, when you're restless, when there's nothing else to do, right? More of the same story on repeat. Or do you want to change? If it is the second one, I want you to right now go to 90dayslater.co, or you can go to the show notes on the podcast and book a consultation call with me. It is free. This is where we talk about what is actually going on for you and whether working together makes sense. Everyone who has ever sat on that call with me was a little scared or a little anxious maybe about doing it, right? Every single one of them, right? I went through that and they still did it anyway. If you have been listening to me for months and you've been thinking about it for months, well, the time is now, not next month, now. Go to 90dayslater.co and book that call with me. And then I will see you on the podcast next week. If this episode hit home and you're ready to explore what life could look like with alcohol in the back seat, let's talk. I work with people one-on-one who are ready to create the relationship with alcohol that works for them, so they feel powerful in their choices and at peace with their habits. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or grab one of the free guides in the show notes to this episode. And if this podcast is helping you, a rating or review goes a long way to help others find this work too.